Oh, welcome back to Singapore Tonight. In your Asia Business Update, we keep the attention focused on tonight's big story, supply chain management, and the action being taken to ensure the sector and its workers are ahead of the curve.
Now, we've been joined tonight by several guests to keep this discussion flowing. Here in the studio, Yun Kim, Cluster President for Singapore, Malaysia and Brunei at Schneider Electric, as well as Celia Sia. She's Senior Vice President and Head of Hub Services and Connectivity at the Singapore Economic Development Board. And also joining us over Zoom is Anderson Ee. He's Director of the Manufacturing Division at Workforce Singapore. Welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Celia, let's begin with you. Why are we talking about supply chain management? Why now?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Why supply chain management? Many companies are diversifying their supply chains to deal with global uncertainties. What this means is that instead of sourcing their raw materials or manufacturing their products in just one location, they're looking to do it from multiple locations. And you can imagine how complicated this can get. Let's take a laptop, for example, which could have more than 1,000 subcomponents. And just getting those subcomponents to one location would be challenging enough. Now imagine getting them from multiple sources and bringing them to multiple manufacturing sites. That's where the supply chain management teams come into play. And that's where they help to plan the whole process and keep this process flowing. So with supply management being important and the diversification happening, we've also observed that many companies are looking to Southeast Asia to diversify their supply chains. Gartner and EDB have done a recent survey looking at supply chain trends, and that survey showed that almost 50% of businesses with supply chain operations in Asia Pacific are planning to expand or build new manufacturing capacity in Southeast Asia in the next 3 years. And that's why at EDB we're seeing an increased interest from companies to set up supply chain management hubs in Singapore.
All right, if 50% wanting to move supply chain management to Southeast Asia, and you're seeing increased interest within Southeast Asia to Singapore, why Singapore? And given your position, how do you ensure people choose Singapore above other places in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so it's moving their supply chains into Southeast Asia and then needing to manage those processes from this part of the world. And that's why we're seeing the increased interest in Singapore. Why Singapore? First of all, we are a well-recognized business hub. And many global companies already have their regional or international headquarters in Singapore. And so therefore, it makes a lot of sense to place their supply chain management teams with their regional headquarters close to where their business unit leaders are. Second, it's also our ecosystem of suppliers and third-party logistics players. It's access to that ecosystem of partners that they would work with. And in Singapore, we now have 23 of the top 25 global logistics players with operations here. And you have DHL, UPS, all having regional headquarters in Singapore. The third part is really about talent. We have about 70,000 supply chain management talent in our workforce today. And every year, there are 3,600 graduates coming out of our universities, our polytechnics, our institutes, who have the relevant skills to take on SCM jobs.
Right, so there's a big pipeline of potential talent there, at least. Yun Kim, on the point of talent, Schneider Electric has a long history in Singapore. We've been here for at least 45 years or so. What kind of skills are you specifically looking at by way of the workers, and why those specific skills?
Yeah, thanks for the invite today. And actually, we are celebrating 50 years anniversary in Singapore this year. And we recently opened a new hub, which is the distribution center near PSA in the Tuas area, where we have a most modern and automated, but as well as Green Mark Platinum distribution center. And you're right. I mean, the requirement for the distribution center and supply chain nowadays is becoming more and more added value employees. Employees that is not only looking on the data, but as well knowing how to manage the digital transformation, as well as analytics, making sure that beside all the normal planning, project management, and the soft skill of dealing with ambiguity as well as collaboration and teamwork is extremely important. And that's where we see more and more people looking for more value-added employees and skill learning process that has been more and more evident in our industry and economy. In our case, we see not only the technological part as well as supply chain, but as well, an important point is sustainability. And the sustainability, how you can really strategize, digitize, and decarbonize. Because not only the supply chain, when we talk about supply chain, you have whole scope 1, 2, and 3, where we need to make sure that we help in this decarbonization journey.
Right.
Right. You mentioned, I mean, it's a great deal of talent you're looking for, being able to, the engineering side, the data analytics, the soft skills of dealing with people and ambiguity, and then you add sustainability on top of that. Do you think your sector can build a stronger pipeline of talent for new roles with all these skills? Is that a realistic requirement at all? Or would you, okay, if you had to choose, prioritize, which ones would you pick above the others?
Yeah, it's difficult to pick one or another. In fact, what we are trying to do, even together with EDB, is making sure that we build the competency center in Singapore. And actually, recently, we announced to build the competency center in Singapore, where it goes in digital, where it goes in sustainability. And we are hiring these people, not only for Singapore, but for the region as well, even as a global talent for Schneider Electric. So this is the way how we are going, not selecting one or another, but balanced skills with its related sustainability, as well as ambiguity, as well digital and technological.
Anderson, let's bring you in on the conversation now. You've been waiting patiently there. I mean, Singapore is working on a supply chain management skills plan. What can we expect from that?
Right. Thanks. I guess most importantly, it's when we look at the skills arising from today's job transformation map, is really a reference point of the mega trend, what the two other panelists was talking about it just now. And how does this translate to the change in a job role, right? Because if you talk about the job role change, you talk about new skills being embedded into those new job roles. So what does the job transformation map, the JTM, does is they let you see what are the trends that's happening, the three trends that was mentioned earlier, digitalization, resilient supply chain, as well as sustainability. How does that translate to a change in job? So I'll give you an example, right? Job roles such as procurement officer, demand supply planners, production and operation managers in the manufacturing floor. They were doing things of the past, right? So going forward, right, they have to leverage, so for instance, supply and demand planners. New responsibility will cover leveraging advanced software to run predictive analytics using AI and machine learning technologies, actively introducing new data variables into their forecast and consolidate data-backed forecast drivers into digital dashboard. All these will require skill sets such as big data analytics, workflow digitalization, for instance, right? Then you talk about production managers. Now they have to all the more integrate Internet of Things, IoT, with robotics technology to streamline manufacturing processes, right? Leveraging on software for more efficient material procurement and adjust for demand hikes, because we are talking about now just in case, not just in time, right? Again, that translates to big data analytics and green manufacturing design and implementation. All the skill sets will then be informed through fellow government agencies such as Skills Future Singapore, where they work with Institute for Higher Learning to translate that into a training program for both the employers to upskill their existing workforce, and for individuals themselves to look ahead and then to equip themselves with the skill set in order for them to firstly, if they want to join the sector or join the function, right, or they are already in the SEM function and they can upskill themselves to value add their job and value add their employees.
Right, we've spent quite a bit of time talking about supply chains, what's needed to stay ahead of the curve as far as industry is concerned. But how much do people in general really know about the sector? We spoke to some of them. Let's have a listen.
E-commerce currently are quite the business is quite good lah. So need supply chain to support that.
To obtain sustainability, you have to look at a supply chain perspective, and the whole climate change can be a way that younger people can gain more interest and understand the perspective and concept of supply chains.
The pandemic, when the supply chain got disrupted, even one process, if it gets stuck on the way, then the whole downstream process gets stuck.
Probably provide more career progression to specialist roles, as well as maybe more recognition in terms of like awards or training.
Different perspectives there on supply chain management. But Anderson, back to you. How do you think the public's perception and knowledge about supply chain management as an issue impacts the sector, how it attracts talent?
So, in fact, I was quite heartened to see those people talking about supply chain incorporating, the end-to-end chain as well as sustainability. In fact, supply chain is always being misunderstood, right, as part of a logistic function. Right? Actually, it's a broader umbrella where logistic is only one part of it. Right? As SCM exists as a very broad-based skill set with some function cutting across sectors, not just logistics, but wholesale trade and manufacturing. Hence, the level of awareness and understanding might vary depending on the complexity of the function within each organization. Right. Having said that, there are ongoing efforts to enhance public awareness of SCM, such as the JPM launch this morning, right, as well as the collaboration with industry stakeholders, such as the trade and association chambers, educational institutions such as the Polytechnic, University, and fellow government agency, including EDB, ESG, and even SkillsFuture Singapore. Right. And in WSG ourselves, we advocate companies to attract talents via the career conversion program for sustainability and supply chain professional. Now, they can learn how the salary support from the career conversion program, the companies are able to build up the SCM talents from outside, new hires, or they can build from within the existing workforce. Right. Similarly, for individuals, they can learn more about SCM through the various sources of information available from the stakeholders mentioned earlier and upskill themselves to explore and pursue SCM career. And besides that, EDB and WSG also in a way partner SUSS and O9 to launch master classes equipping individuals with digital and sustainability skill set to manage the flow of goods and services in the new world. Right. Hence, these are some of the activities, not all exhaustive. There are a lot more to be done, but this is something that we are working on to develop and to attract talents in this particular function.
All right, Mr. Yoon Kim, all these things we are good for a company, good for a country's economy, but if we look at consumers, given all this transformation, what would that mean for consumers when it comes to something that we all think of, prices, efficacy?
Yeah, I was thinking about pandemic period. Without supply chain, without logistic efficiency, would have been very difficult to us to buy online, to have a lot of interactions with virtual interactions. So I really refer to that, and it's about how we can really build up the supply chain in a positive way. And I have in one of the examples, for instance, it's not about being efficient, productive, but as well being safe. With the virtual reality tools, we are able to train in the moment that was very difficult to get on the job. We have enough people, was able to train virtually to avoid them to go on the job without being pre-trained. And then virtually they were able to simulate and train and learn and then go to the place very safe. So it's a protection for individuals as well as for the consumers, as making the whole supply chain much more efficient.
Right, efficiency, productivity, all very important components of business. But Celia, what other steps is the nation taking in order to stay competitive in this sphere?
Besides ensuring that we continue to have a pro-business environment, I'll mention two things. So we continue to invest in infrastructure, and that's infrastructure that facilitates the flow of goods. So for example, we've been increasing our air and sea cargo capacities. By 2040, Tuas Port is expected to become the largest fully automated container terminal in the world. The second thing I want to mention is our commitment to talent. So you heard Anderson talk about all the different things we're doing. We continue to invest in our talent, and one example is the skills plan that EDB and Skills Future Singapore has developed, where it's about highlighting the trends that are going to affect the SCM job roles and also the types of skills that people need to take on these new SCM roles. So we are committed to developing our talent in the SCM space.
Well, thanks all of you. Appreciate you joining us for this conversation this evening. Mr. Yoon Kim, Cluster President for Singapore, Malaysia and Brunei Schneider Electric. Ms. Celia Seah from Senior VI from the Singapore Economic Development Board. And of course, Mr. Anderson Ee from Workforce Singapore. Thanks all of you for joining us.
Thank you.